Twin.
Welcome to Twin Films. This is episode 3. My name is Ernesto Sandoval.
Hey, I'm Drew Barnett Hamilton.
And today we're going to be talking about The Illusionist versus The Prestige. So let's start with, first of all, Drew, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks. How are you?
Could be better. Some stomach issues happening, overall anxiety and dread. But besides that, honestly, pretty damn good.
Well, I try not to live in the existential dread. I just try and let it slide over the surface.
Yeah, no, it's not optional. You live in it. It's just whether you want to acknowledge it or not.
Well, hopefully some magic movies helped you feel a little brighter.
Actually, it filled me with a lot more dread, but we'll get into that in a second. All right, so the first film we're breaking down is The Illusionist. It is written and directed by Neil Berger. Came out in 2006. Stars Edward Norton, Paul Giamatti, and Jessica Biel. It was written by Neil Berger. It was based on the short story Eisenheim the Illusionist by Steve Milhauser. And its budget was $16.5 million. Its box office was $87.9 million worldwide. The tagline is, "Everything you've seen here has been an illusion." It was released September 1st, 2006, and it was, I guess it's kind of like an independent film, right?
Somewhat, yeah. It did the festival circuit.
Right.
It went to
Sundance.
Toronto and did some of those. Yeah, it was Bob Yari, producer, and Yari Productions. Yeah, pretty impressive. $16.5 million budget, pretty small budget, and they did well worldwide. $90 million worldwide. It's a pretty good turnaround.
Yeah, it's pretty good. At the beginning, we have this shot of Edward Norton sitting on a stage sweating. And
he is really sweating.
He's really sweating and he's really focused. Then all of a sudden, Paul Giamatti is like looking at him, and then he stands up and he's like, "Arrest this man."
Well, you kind of see like a glimmer of a spirit, but you don't really see what's going on. Right. It's so cryptic.
We discover he's a chief inspector. He's talking to the prince. What's his name? The prince?
Prince Leopold, based on an actual prince who was a hemophiliac. You see, he has all those like health problems throughout.
And the prince is just like, "You must get rid of this man." It's like, "I don't want to hear any more of it. What do we know about Eisenheim? What do we know about Eisenheim?" And then Paul Giamatti's like, "I know everything there is to know about Eisenheim." And then it goes into a flashback, right? He becomes like a narrator. We go back to his youth.
All of a sudden, you're back in time to Ed Norton, to Eisenheim's childhood.
Right.
His father was a cabinet maker, and he falls in love with a woman who's way out of his league.
The Duchess.
Yeah. And he starts doing little magic tricks and impresses her.
Well, here's the part that I got to be honest. I was watching it because I'd never seen The Illusionist before.
Oh, you've never seen it?
So it was my first time watching it.
I had only seen it when it originally came out.
Okay, so I had never seen it before, right? I was like, I don't know if I can keep watching this because it wasn't a good start. First of all, like I said, Edward Norton sweating,
Rocky
Road, constipated, and then we and then we go to this childhood, and then he's like, he came across a man next to a tree, a magician, right? And then the magician is like, "Here's a frog." And I'm already thinking, I would run away.
No.
This is freaking me out.
There's not enough explanation about how he meets this wayward magician in a field.
In the middle of nowhere, and so he's showing him tricks. Yeah, very shady. He shows him tricks. And then Paul Giamatti's narrating, and then he's just like, "And some say the magician disappeared." And then he just vanishes. And he's like, "And even the tree disappeared." It's like, what? And everything vanishes. And I'm like, I was thinking, this is so goddamn stupid.
It's weird because it's not like a magical fantastical. It's like a weird kid's storybook that took a turn you weren't expecting. And so you're seeing this flashback of young magician Eisenheim learning from this chance magician he encountered. But then Paul Giamatti's like, "I'm the expert on everything." It's a weird, it's like, do you believe in magic, friend?
And also Neil Berger was doing this like thing where he was trying to make the image like it kept flashing the black, like old-timey film and stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of filters. And there's so much work with the candlelight of it all.
Yeah.
It's like just throw some fill light on some people. I don't know. At a certain point, that stuff took me out of it. That's when it becomes a problem. I don't mind being flourishy, but when it's taking me out of the moment,
right,
or is distracting me from the story.
The Duchess and Eisenheim, they end up falling in love as kids. Eisenheim makes this like necklace for her. That's like this magical.
Yes,
like,
this becomes very important.
Yeah.
It's a special locket that has a secret. So when you turn it, you can open it and find the picture inside.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's just a little locket.
I mean, I did find it funny that you do have this intricate thing, and at the end, it's just like this weird picture of a little boy.
Yeah. So young Eisenheim and the young Duchess are sneaking away together, and nobody likes it. So they run into the forest and steal
secret hiding spot. Yeah.
Yeah, they go to their little like hideaway, but they obviously get caught.
Right.
And he gets sent away, and she lives her life. And a big you like see him going away. There seems like a lot of time jumps in a row here.
Yeah.
And then you see him go away to like train and learn magic in foreign lands and new places.
Right. It's like, and then, yeah, at some point, the narrator's just like, after that, they were separated, and Eisenheim just, no one knows what happened after that. He just like disappeared.
So mysterious.
So mysterious. And then he reappears, I guess. We do a 20-year jump or a 10-year. I'm not sure about the time jump. Exactly how many years?
At least a decade.
Yeah.
You're talking at least a decade because these were teenagers and now they're full-fledged adults.
Yeah.
She's pretty much engaged to evil Prince Leopold.
Illusionist has a show. Eisenheim is doing his thing. It looks like he's dedicated his life to magic, and he's doing all these performances, which is great. But the trouble begins, right, when Prince Leopold comes to town. He's heard about him, and he's like, he wants to see a show. The Illusionist is putting on a performance, and he asks for a volunteer, and Prince Leopold volunteers his wife-to-be, which is the Duchess.
He's like, sure, take her.
Yeah. It's like, take her, she volunteers, and immediately Eisenheim they recognize each other. They haven't seen each other in so many years.
I feel like Eisenheim's there to pursue her. He's coming back to get her. It seemed like it takes her a minute to clock him. Like, I don't think there's any way he doesn't know exactly who she is or what he's coming back for.
That's interesting because the way it was played, it did seem like a genuine, like, do you know me?
Maybe it's like, is this her? But I just mean
okay.
It's like he's got to want to come back for her.
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
Because it seems like he's
I didn't get that, but
been plotting.
That's good. Okay.
Him going, like he could have gone anywhere. Why would he go back there?
That's a good point. That's actually, that actually was something that I thought was missing, but that's interesting. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, she definitely doesn't know who he is. But, she's a rich bitch. So he's a plebe. He says some line, some callback to when they were kids or something, and she looks him in the eye and she gets it. And she's like, oh, it's him. And then, there's a turn in her.
But as far as you bring up a good point, as far as him like pursuing her, I didn't get that sense until maybe later that's why he was there. But actually, you just, I don't, well, yeah, because I don't think that's in the film. But
I know what you mean, though. There's no dialogue there. It's all hard eye fucking. It's all implied. I think it's just that this man has clearly been moving with intention.
So then they do this trick, whatever. Everyone's blown away. Afterwards, they have like a little party. Prince Leopold is just like, so how'd you do it? He's like, I'm smart, man. I can figure it out. It's all bullshit, right?
It's a little tough for me to understand why he's such an asshole about needing to know all the answers because they don't really tell us why. Like, it's just you're the prince. You should know everything.
Right. I think it's, at least I interpret it as like he's insecure about his intelligence.
That reads better with his character than anything else because I don't want more of him in the movie, but I wish they would have explained that a little more. Even the audience is like, all right, Prince, can you sit down so we can see the show?
So then he gets invited to his show. He's like, I'm impressed with what you did. Why don't you come do a private show for me?
Yeah, he wants to see more so he can figure out more.
Yeah.
At the private show, Eisenheim does the trick that's like the sword in Excalibur.
Yeah.
Excalibur. And where he tries to pull the sword from the stone. And it's a really interesting jab. Like, it's a subtle dig.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows that Leopold has questionable morality. And so it's a really cool gag to pull in front of everyone. And by having these other guys come up first, like, it's ballsy.
Yeah.
Eisenheim is like, yeah, sure, we'll go there. And immediately you get that tension ramped up to such a new level between the prince and Eisenheim. So now you have this like really strong competition over this woman.
Yeah, no, and it's a great way to humiliate the prince. It's a really great way to humiliate him, but also to build up that tension. Well, I think the reason why that scene is so full attention is because we know that Eisenheim met with the Duchess in private. The chief inspector now knows it, and I think at this point the prince knows it too. But I do love all the scenes with the chief inspector and Eisenheim. You know, what the way Paul Giamatti plays all those scenes is sort of like, how do you know each other? We're childhood friends. Childhood friends. Like, it's really like good. It's like, but I love that dialogue where it's just like, listen, we are not of those people. Okay.
Yeah.
We are not of those people. I get you're trying to make a move. I know there's something you're playing at. Don't know what it is. I just want to understand what's going on. And then you understand the chief inspector's motivation that he's the prince's right-hand man so that he can one day be the mayor, chief of police.
And you start to reveal at this point in the film that this goes even further, that Leopold is planning to overthrow his father, the king.
Yeah.
And he has offered the inspector, that's where that bigger job comes in. He's like, you can have what you want. I'm going to take over the country. And you find out that the woman is a part of this plan because she helps bring this alliance from this other country. Like, all these pieces start to come into play. That prince ain't going to let that woman go at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. The inspector is an interesting line of morality that shifts throughout the film. So at this point in the film, he's like, we have to be in our place. We can't cross class lines.
Mm-hmm.
You know better. And he's trying to get Eisenheim to just leave the situation.
Right.
And kind of save him in a way. In the inspector's mind, there's no way you're winning against the prince.
Right.
The prince is going to get you.
Right. It's such a good scene establishing his character, establishing their dynamic. But I also love Paul Giamatti's like love of the magic because he loves the magic. He genuinely loves it, and
he's like, I'm gonna go to another show. He's sitting there all giddy.
He's just like, so how'd you do this? How'd you do? And he does that whole thing of like the hand on the hand on his head. How does he reveal the trick?
When you see the blood rush out, and that's a cool little one.
Yeah, I mean, but I just love his genuine like, this is fucking cool. The chief inspector's doing his job, but I think he does genuinely like Eisenheim.
Eisenheim has charmed him, and so he's questioning his morality because he's like, well, if this guy thinks it's very interesting.
Yeah, and I think also Eisenheim never mistreats him. Never, he always treats him with respect, and
he kind of uses him a little to get where he needs to go, but never maliciously.
Yeah. I mean, he wants to know, but it's not dark.
Yeah.
He just wants to, like, how'd you do this? It's such a childlike,
you see
mentality.
the glimmer in his eye. Yeah. I really enjoy that piece of it too.
Oh yeah, so we were talking about the Excalibur. Everyone's in an uproar. Like, dude, you humiliated him. Like, shit's gonna go down. Like, this is not good. He's gonna come after you. And the Duchess is upset with him.
Now the prince is really pushing hard for the inspector to shut down the show.
Yeah.
And the inspector's like, it's really popular. And he's like, great. It'll be easy to figure out a reason to shut it down. It's like, oh.
Yeah. And the Duchess and him, she's like pissed at him, and then they end up making out. He's just like, it's like, it's because of you and all this shit. They have this like sex scene, but it's also a little like violent too. Remember, it's like he like pushes her away and just like fucking starts to like grab her. It's
he doesn't want to, and then he does.
It's like, he's like tortured, and
this is the first sex scene we've encountered in any of the films. And this is not a knock on the actors. I think they're both wonderful in the scene. It's just there isn't this chemistry that you'd want for me in that scene. I think partially because of the way it's shot. They're never really seen together in that at all. So it's like a post-coital scene, but they're across the room, or you're not really seeing them on camera in a two-shot a lot. There's little things that feel very disjointed. I think they have chemistry in the film.
Yeah.
But in that one scene, it's kind of an awkward, love sequence.
Yeah, it felt a little awkward. Yeah, it definitely felt a little awkward after they have sex and they're talking. That makes up for it.
She had snuck away to go to Eisenheim's cabin for this secret interlude. Clearly, this is when they start hatching a plot for her to escape the prince.
Will you do anything to get away? It's like, it's impossible, or whatever the fuck, It's like, all right, trust me. And then they start plotting this whole thing.
Yeah.
Right?
More secret interludes, and the inspector is following her. And
the inspector's following her, following him.
Eisenheim brings a suitcase to her in the carriage. The inspector knows something's up.
Chief Inspector tells the prince, and the prince is like humiliated that she was seen with Eisenheim. And then later that night, Duchess and the prince have a conversation, and she tells him, I'm going to leave you.
Yeah, she's like snuck out of her house. She goes over to the castle to break up with the prince.
Right.
Doesn't go so well.
Breaks up with the prince. He starts drinking. Then she like runs away. He goes after her. The next thing you know, you hear some screaming.
She's like in the stables. And what's really what's cool here is you're kind of getting the perspective of the prince's guards. So you see her run away, and the prince's guard is like looking out the window down towards the stables, like he can see from his POV her. Yeah. And she runs, and then you see like the prince run after her, and then the guard's like, what? I can't see anymore. And you just hear screaming, and then the horse.
Yeah, with the Duchess on the horse, like
kind of keeled over.
Yeah.
And then the horse shows up the next day at her house with no one on it, and they start the search for the Duchess.
Yeah, and they find the Duchess in the river, and she's dead. Eisenheim sees her, gets her body, starts crying. They recover her body.
The family doctor talks to the inspector.
And the physical doctor is just like, oh, by the way, she had this jewel in her pocket. Right? And then
the jewels on her body when they recover the body.
Yeah.
This little red jewel.
The chief inspector gets in and he's just like, huh, okay. And then Eisenheim is just like, she was murdered. The prince did this.
You know what he's capable of.
You know what he did. They get someone else to take the blame for the murder.
This is where the inspector's moral code is tough, because he very casually just says in his narration, we just arrested some schmo and threw him in jail, but a lot of people knew that wasn't it. And then because of that, Ed Norton goes to confront the inspector, is like, you've got to be kidding me. We all know the prince did this. And then you get a big time jump.
Yeah, you get a huge time jump.
Huge time jump.
But again, we don't know how much time has fucking passed.
Nope.
I have no idea.
Just enough for him to get a new show together.
Yeah.
This is the time frame for these two movies we're going to talk about today, is how long does it take to get a new show up and running? We don't know.
Yeah.
It could be a month. It could be 2 months.
Yeah, these just time jumps,
innocuous time jump.
Yeah, so the Illusionist new show is bringing up the dead, bringing up ghosts.
Spirits
and stuff. Apparitions.
Kind of seance vibes, but not candles, just oil lamps.
And so people start freaking out. He becomes the talk of the town again because he's like bringing up the dead. People are like blown away. Prince gets word of this, and he's just like, why is this guy still around?
Yeah.
Like... What, like, and it's just like, just stop this shit, you know? I guess the prince starts to become like interested in like, what is he doing exactly?
His curiosity gets piqued again.
Yeah. And so when the prince shows up,
he shows up in disguise.
He
gets all dressed up and is like, hey, inspector, you can't sit near me.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want cops around me. It's too obvious.
Which it would be.
Yeah. Yeah, so just shit starts happening. People are like the people are getting fucking scared. It's like causing an uproar. Prince goes to see it, and when the prince sees the show, Eisenheim brings up the ghost of the Duchess.
Yes,
and the Duchess is just like, "Where am I? I don't know where I am," and then she disappears.
But someone in the audience is like, "Were you murdered?
Were you murdered? It was the prince, right?
Did the prince do it?"
And the prince is pissed, and he's just like, arrest this man. This guy has to be arrested. Shut it down. This is fucking crazy. Just before that final show, Eisenheim's like, I'm going to do one more show. And the chief inspector is just like, I love this also scene where he's just like, look, you're clearly gifted. No matter what, you're very special, gifted, whether this is real or not. But you just please stop this.
Yes,
you know?
Again, you have the inspector going to Eisenheim, begging him to stop and save himself this time. We're at the final Eisenheim performance.
Mm-hmm.
He's brought back the Duchess. And this is where we now realize we are back in the opening scene.
Mm-hmm.
Sweaty Ed Norton. And you're getting all the clues tied back in. So this is right before he tries to shut the show down. Eisenheim is very upset because there's all this mayhem while the cops are trying to shut the show down. And he just wants to hang out with the spirit. And he's sitting there being all sad. And she disappears. And then they go up to arrest Eisenheim. And he fucking disappears.
Right.
He just like fades into the nothing on the stage. And everyone's kind of left bewildered.
Yeah, I love the part where the chief inspector is like, find him. We have to find him. And then someone in the audience says, I don't think you're going to find him.
That's a good heckle.
Yeah. I just thought that was hilarious. The chief inspector goes backstage.
After they shut down the show.
Yeah. And then he sees the locket.
But that's clearly a choice. That's what I mean. This is clearly a choice by Eisenheim because he wouldn't have left that trick out.
Right.
He knew that folder was the one that Inspector was most interested in. So he put valuable information in that folder knowing the inspector would check it out.
Would open it, yeah.
Yeah. Didn't actually leave the real orange tree clue in there. And then this leads the inspector on his own little investigation. And finally, his moral code is broken enough that he realizes the prince might have been capable of doing this. And he finds another jewel in the stables.
Right. He finds the locket and the jewel in the stables.
And then, well, he goes back. He keeps going back. Here's one of my biggest problems with the movie as a person who has volunteered and worked with horses a lot. It's been months.
Yeah.
And I know you change those stables often. None of that shit would have still been in there. But whatever. We'll just gloss over that. Or those horses were not properly taken care of. Someone call the Humane Society.
Yeah.
But yeah, he keeps going back. So he finds the other gem. He matches it to the sword. He finally figures out the locket thing. He finds the locket in the stables. And he knows, without a doubt, the prince has done it.
Yeah, he has that one servant show him the sword and the jewels fit in the sword. And he's finally like put it together. Like the prince fucking did this. He murdered the Duchess. Then you have that like intense scene where the chief inspector confronts him and he's like, I've already sent word to your father about your plan to overthrow him, that you murdered the Duchess.
That's a good reveal. Like, I already sent a letter. Yeah. You're screwed, even if you kill me now.
Yeah. It's like, no matter what, you're fucked. And the prince is like, so he fooled you, huh? So you believe Eisenheim. Everything he does is trickery. It's all bullshit. He starts freaking out, takes out a gun.
He's closing all the doors.
He's closing all the doors.
The guards, the father's guards are showing up.
Yeah.
Like the letter has arrived. Like people are coming for this dude and he's barricading himself in with poor chief inspector.
And he just keeps like pointing the gun at him and threatening him like, do something. You have to say it was all a lie. It was all bullshit. Cornered. And he just fucking puts the gun to himself and he kills himself.
I was really sure he was going to kill Paul Giamatti. Like, you know, it's very intense. And then when he takes that turn and he realizes there's nothing left and he kills himself.
Then we jump and that's when we see the little kid go up to the chief inspector, shows him the orange tree.
Hands him a little package.
And it's the actual...
the trick reveal.
The trick revealed.
Yeah.
And Paul Giamatti's like, what the fuck? What? Looks around, sees someone walking, and there's like a little chase scene.
Yeah, he goes and follows Eisenheim in disguise. They love a disguise.
I guess while he's at the train station, Paul Giamatti starts looking around and smiling like that son of a bitch got me. And then we do like images of what actually happened, right?
Right. Then you get the big reveal. Paul Giamatti just kind of stands there in some really good light and discovers it all. And you're seeing these flashes of how they tricked everyone and they Romeo and Juliet a little with some potions and made people sleep and fake death.
So Eisenheim and the Duchess basically put all this together, right? They plotted the whole thing. They drugged the prince so that he could get really drunk and get all disoriented. The Duchess drops the locket, gems, all that shit. Fake blood and everything. So they plan like the whole thing. And Paul Giamatti, I guess, figures this out by looking around the train station.
It's just his epiphany moment.
Right. It's his epiphany, you know?
But it's interesting too, because Eisenheim has showed respect to the inspector by giving him the trick, by giving him the answer to the trick. And so even though they're not really giving you a good conclusion there, they're just kind of showing Paul Giamatti thinking about it.
Yeah.
The ultimate sign of respect for Paul Giamatti is not going after them, because he could still go get Eisenheim and the chick.
Yeah.
But his morality has shifted, and he knows that they were in the right to go.
Even before that, when he was talking to the prince, he was saying, I don't care about being mayor. I don't care about chief of police. This is the right thing to do.
At that point, he knows he doesn't want it that way because he's going to keep having to make unsavory decisions.
Right. And then we see the Duchess and Eisenheim live happily ever after. Now that we've reached the end of it, what was lost to me was I wasn't sure what the hell Eisenheim wanted at the very beginning. It becomes clear as you watch the movie, it's love. He's all doing this for love. But he's also a very good magician, obsessive magician. He's very good at what he does. It was hard for me to understand his journey a little bit. And also, that whole murder thing was so obvious. It was like, fuck, she's not dead.
No. Oh no,
I
there's
didn't
no way
believe that
she was
shit
ever
for a
dead.
second. And I think that's what kind of ruined my experience. I'm like, this is so goddamn obvious. I don't know how exactly they did it as I was watching it, but I'm like, she's clearly not dead.
Well, he's a magician.
Yeah. So the prince was right. It's like, he fooled you. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, he is right.
Everything you've seen here is an illusion. So Prestige was released October 20th, 2006. It was a Touchstone Pictures film, which is a Disney subsidiary, but it was actually originally financed by Warner Brothers. They sold the domestic distribution rights to Touchstone and kept the international rights.
Well, I think it's because Warner Brothers at that point was like in love with Nolan.
Well, that's the thing. They wouldn't totally let go of it. They weren't sure about the film, but they wanted to keep the international stakes. It was that was because they love Nolan. As we said, director on Prestige, Christopher Nolan, written by Christopher and Jonathan Nolan, based on the book by Christopher Priest. Prestige is starring Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, Michael Caine, Scarlett Johansson, and some wonderful smaller roles, including David Bowie and Andy Serkis.
That's right.
Tagline, a friendship that became a rivalry. Budget on this one was $40 million and made a box office of about 109.7 worldwide.
Was this your first time watching this movie, or you'd seen it before?
I had seen The Prestige before in theaters when opening weekend. I had forgotten certain things about this movie because it has been a long time since I have seen it.
I saw it once in theaters, and this was my second time watching it. There's nothing like the first time you watch it because
it's hard to recapture.
Because when you rewatch it, you just know it. It's so obvious.
Having rewatched it a couple times, but having a long gap, I thought I would forget more and it would be more intriguing. But knowing what you know, it slaps you in the face with it time and time again. So it is a harder rewatch than I remembered because of that.
But I also think he's basically like telling you from the beginning.
Oh, he's telling you.
He's telling you this is that line. Are you watching closely?
Yes.
Because he's fooling you along the way. So there's nothing like the first time you watch it. Well, the second time what you realize is, dude, he is basically spelling out for me what is happening, but you don't want to believe it because it's that simple. And even there's even dialogue that's about that. It's like
I took down some quotes where it is literally just in your face. I think the first time you're watching it, you're so busy trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. There are over 145 time jumps in this film, according to IMDb, which basically equates to a time jump a minute. And it's not linear time. You're going every direction in time, forwards, backwards, sideways. I think the first watching, you're dissecting it and processing it. The second and third watching, you can maybe still even enjoy a ton because you have to see how he laid it out. But at a certain point, it's so obvious.
Plot is interesting to unfold here. But
it's hard. I will say that they both The Illusionist and The Prestige begin with this threat of these magicians being jailed.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's an interesting look into The Prestige because in The Illusionist you're starting with this kind of flash forward where he's like, arrest him, shut down the magic. But in this other one, we're starting with Borden in jail for his rival's murder.
Right. That was a really good way to start it. And so then they have these journals that both Borden and Angier, right? They both read each other's journals. So we understand that they were once part of the same troupe under the magician who's played by...
under Ricky Jay. Under Ricky Jay.
Yeah. The big thing is that these magicians, these guys, Borden and Angier, are what's known as shills. They're like plants in the audience. They work together. They do this whole big act. A woman performer is put into a tank, right?
The water tank.
Water tank. She's tied by these two volunteers, put in there, and then she's able to untie herself and get out of the tank.
She lets herself out, right.
That's how they've gotten to know each other. And they're both, I guess, hired by Michael Caine's character, Cutter. They have this whole banter now of what is a magician? What do you want to, how do you push yourself? And because they're talking shit about Ricky Jay's act, it's so basic and it's so...
They're of course, they're these low-level employees that are shitting on their boss thinking they can do better.
Right.
But it's fun because clearly they have a fervor and a enthusiasm for magic that they haven't found, people like that other than probably Cutter, because Cutter clearly loves the magic. So you have these guys that like go to shows together and like to like push each other on. I love when Cutter's telling them, "Oh, go do this show. Go check out the guy with the fishbowl."
Yeah.
You know, encouraging this quest for magical knowledge. When they're at the goldfish bowl trick, Borden figures out very quickly the real trick is that the guy is super fit and he's pretending to be crippled to like do the tricks. What's cool is right there, like what, 10, 15 minutes into the film, Borden turns to Angiers and says, "That's the trick." He's living the trick.
Yeah.
The trick isn't what's on stage. He's telling you right there.
Yeah.
All right.
A little side note about that performer is based on someone in real life.
Yes.
Chung Ling Soon.
Yes.
And it was played by a white guy, which is so racist and so fucked up.
Yeah, but did you hear how he got his end?
Yeah. And so I know that he was a white guy who he performed as this magician.
He pretended to be Chinese.
He pretended because it was like,
as part of the magic.
Yeah, it's like, this is exotic. People will be into it.
Fucked
but
up.
why don't you say what happened to him?
Well, the line I read was the first and last words he ever uttered on stage in English were, "I've been shot."
Yeah.
And he was killed on stage.
Yeah, it was a bullet catch trick.
That went wrong.
But also, I think he didn't speak English for 20 years.
No.
Right? Yeah.
That was part of the trick. He had lived as... he had like... his
wonder if
persona outside of his home had always been to be this...
I wonder if he actually learned like a foreign language. Or if he just was quiet.
Or if he just didn't speak.
Yeah.
I hope he had the respect to at least learn some Chinese, for God's sake.
Fucked up.
Ni hao, bitches.
So, yeah, that's pretty crazy. But yes, you're right. Like right there, it's like he's living the trick, you know?
Yes. So you're establishing that the true magician will completely sacrifice their life for the craft. And Borden says that outright. He's like, if you really love magic, you give it everything you got.
Yeah. We also get to know Borden, that Borden's really just passionate. He's willing to go above and beyond. And he's always passionate about what's more interesting, what's more difficult or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So then he talks about the knot that he ties for his wife. And even the wife is just like, yeah, that other knot would be better, but to be more challenging. She's up to the challenge. Like,
But Cutter reminds him it's not a good water knot because the ropes expand and it's harder to get off. And so they have this like banter about which is the best rope knot to use.
Right. And it's just like, it's about like safety. You think about the person's safety. We see another performance and Borden just wants to push the limits. Borden wants to be like, no, let's make this more challenging. There's a quick glance with Borden and the female performer and she's up to the challenge. She's like, do it.
Because even in the backstage, she had been like, no, I want to try it.
Yeah, I can do it.
I also think, though, when they're raising her up, she has this really intense look of fear.
Oh, shit. Right.
I feel like you get this moment where even she is like, I've been wanting to try this. Here we go. Which is good acting on her. Because like that I don't know how much I'd noticed that before. I clocked it this time. I was like, oh, she's like, yes, let's do it. And then when they're raising her up, she's like, oh, here we go.
Shit, that's a good.
It's cool.
That's a really good.
It was very subtle.
Wow. And then she fucking drowns.
She dies. Well, and it's so intense because Michael Caine, every time they've done the show, Michael Caine will pick up an axe and his pocket watch when the show's like when she goes in the tank and start the clock.
Yeah.
And every time he just gets to like put the axe back down, everything's cool. And this time it all goes awry. When I was watching it this time, I did think, isn't the whole gag that it's a fake padlock? Couldn't they have taken the padlock off and gotten her out? We're gonna gloss over that.
Yeah, and also what I was thinking was, why would you make the glass so thick? Yeah.
Yeah, because later when they show water tanks like this several times throughout the film, but later that glass looks like it's a fucking inch thick in the other tanks, and you're like, was that? Well, for those it was necessary.
Yeah. The funeral, they show up and Borden's like, I'm sorry, and he's like, which knot did you tie? Which knot did you? And he's like, I don't know. And it's interesting acting there because I do believe him. I think he's sort of at a loss. He doesn't quite know, but all I know is that, do you think he did it on purpose? I don't think he did it on purpose.
I think it was guilt. I think he knew he pushed it too far, even though he feels whatever he feels in that moment, enough trauma or guilt to not admit his part of it or his choice in it. A lot of people would have taken that situation and started living a safer life and making choices differently. Borden had none of that.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm just going to keep living my life exactly the way I did.
Yeah, because then he ends up doing like a bullet catch.
But this time he has like met his own woman.
Right.
Borden's love interest, played by Rebecca Hall, is at the magic show with her nephew. The kid immediately sees the trick, and it's a bird trick. And one of the birds dies and another bird comes out. In the magic world, you think, oh, the bird's fine. But this cute little kid understands, and he says, where's his brother? And he's crying.
And then Christian Bale's like, small kid. Like,
and then he's like, he basically is like, your kid's real smart. And she's like, he's my nephew. And he's like, it's on.
Yeah. But then there's that scene where they go out and stuff, goes back to the house. And he's like, can I come in for tea, right?
Yeah. And she says no.
And she says no. And he's like, okay, I'll see you later. And then she comes back in. She locks her door. And he's like, milk and sugar? And then she like laughs. And he laughs. But it's like, this is fucking weird.
This is breaking and entering. No
this is
no,
fucking
sir.
terrifying. Like, milk and sugar, get the fuck out of my house.
And he made some quip right as she's closing the door, like, oh, you think that can keep me out? I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
ugh. We're flashing back and forth a lot.
Right.
Time does not exist. When we see Borden in quote unquote present day when he's locked up, you're also getting little pieces of this magic collector.
Lord Caldwell or something?
Lord Caldwell or
Caldwell or
whatever.
something.
At this point, he's offering Borden to take his daughter in as a ward. And he's just kind of this name being thrown around. He's very interested in the case.
Borden is willing to reveal his secrets so that his daughter can have a good life. He wants her to be with Fallon, right?
He wants her to stay with Fallon.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
But then they're like, well, if she stays with Fallon, she's going to get taken away and sent to a workhouse.
Right. Okay.
So the fancy Lord guy's offering to take her in as a ward and raise her. And
only if he
but
reveals
he
the
has to
secrets.
reveal all the secrets, including the transported man.
Okay.
But and he's willing to give all the secrets away except for the transported man.
Oh, okay.
So he says no deal.
He's debating this. Borden is debating this as he's reading Angier's journal, which is how we're getting all this information. Right?
Yes.
So then the bullet catch.
And we travel back in time.
Yeah, we travel back in time. He's doing the bullet catch. And then Angier, Borden asks for a volunteer. Angier, in disguise, volunteers, gets the gun, fucks with it so that it will actually shoot.
Yeah, he puts a new bullet in.
He puts a new bullet in, and he ends up shooting Borden, and he shoots off like two of his fingers.
Two of his fingers on his hand.
And Angier does it because he's pissed about it, losing his wife, and he's just like, which knot did you fucking tie? And he's like, I don't know, and he shoots him.
He can't let go of that same question. And you see Angier's reading in the journal trying to get the answer for the same question.
Yeah. And he's like, how could he not know? How could he not know?
How could he not know? He's got to know.
And so, And so now Borden has to like change shit up because he's lost two of his fingers. It does fuck with his act, but not that much. He just has to come up with a better act.
And that's when his wife's upset and she says, it's like the day it happened.
Yeah.
It's not healing. And you find out later, obviously, why. But the way that Borden's wife talks about him, some days you love me and you mean it. Some days you don't. There's a lot there they're telling you.
Yeah.
You know,
that's good too.
Because he can be so family-oriented some days, and then other days it's all about the magic.
This is where they start the whole rivalry, because now Borden wants, he's going to get his revenge.
Cutter has gone and found Angier's, and he, in honor of his late wife's suggestion, they're going to use the name The Great Danton.
That's right. So then they start doing their own magic show.
He finds her a new assistant. We get
assistant.
Scarlett Johansson enters the picture.
And they start working on this bird trick. It's supposed to like be something that'll set him off. It'll be a good trick.
They're finally not going to kill the bird.
Yeah, they're not going to kill the bird, so it's all looking good. And he asked for a volunteer, and who's a volunteer is Borden. And
in disguise. They should know to look out for each other at this point. Like, give Scarlett Johansson a picture of that man.
Yeah.
Be like, don't let him on stage.
Borden does payback. Bird dies.
And the lady volunteering, her fingers get all broken in the bird cage.
Everyone's shocked. Everyone's like, this is fucked up. So then they're like, get the fuck out of here. We're not doing any more shows. They just go back to square one. They're like, okay, what the hell are we going to do? I think this is when the expo happens, right?
Yeah. Cutter is like, hey, there's this expo in town. Go get inspired. Like, go get some ideas. And he tells Angiers to go check it out. So Tesla had this booth and he's trying to show this cool stuff with the power as part of Thomas Jefferson's smear campaign against him. They've made everyone kind of fearful of the way that it looks with the lightning. And so Tesla won't come out and talk to everyone under those conditions, right? But clearly Borden and Angiers are both intrigued.
Yeah. We also cut this other time period where Angier is traveling to Colorado Springs because he's reading Borden's journal.
Yep.
And the keyword to decipher his journal, right, is Tesla. So he goes out to Colorado Springs and he wants to meet Tesla. He has a machine that he wants him to build. And Tesla doesn't want to meet him. But that's when we meet Andy Serkis, who's his assistant.
Yes. Who's
and he
awesome.
Seems to like love. He knows who the Great Danton is.
He had seen his show 7 times.
Yes.
Big fan. He fangirled out. He's like, no, you can't come in though.
And so Angier is there and he's like, well, I'll be here as long as it takes. I want him to build this machine for me. I need it, for this next magic show or whatever, And so there's a lot of waiting around while all of this is playing out. So there's so many different stories going on at the same time. It's like really hard sometimes it's hard to explain, like go through this right now. But
it is because you're going, like I said, you're just constantly going forwards and backwards in time.
Present. Yeah, it's all jumbled.
So Angiers finally gets to meet Tesla.
Yeah.
Which is one of the greatest, is that the greatest entrance on film ever?
So fucking cool.
It is so fucking cool. I remember being in theaters waiting for fucking Bowie. Yeah. And even then, the entrance was impressively badass.
Yeah. The whole Tesla stuff was really cool. It's like Tesla also understands Randier's ambition and obsession. But here's the thing, he's like, be careful because one minute they'll love you and then next thing it's like you also have to keep up with the times.
Yeah, he said 1 minute they're praising me, 1 minute they're asking me to retire.
Society's only ready for one change at a time.
I loved that quote.
So it was just like really cool. And I love even like Andrew's like reaction to it. Like, shit, this guy is something else. And what drives Angier is he sees Borden's transported man trick. He
says
sees
it's the greatest magic trick I've ever seen.
He's like the greatest magic trick I've ever fucking seen.
Borden is the better magician. Angiers is the better showman.
Yeah.
In his spite, Angiers decides he's going to use this. So he's going to take this trick that is so incredible. No matter, he doesn't know how it's done yet. Doesn't matter. He's going to steal it and make it good.
And Cutter's like...
Just like, I don't know any other way except a double.
Right. It's like, it has to be the same guy. But it's again in your face like, no, there's nothing fancy about this. It's just a fucking twin.
It's brothers. You've just had Tesla say, let go of this obsession.
Yeah.
Then you have him say, it's the most simple answer. Yeah. And he still just can't hear it.
He can't accept
blinded by.
And so then this is where we get into this whole goofiness of Hugh Jackman playing a twin.
Oh, God. He plays his own drunk.
Hugh Jackman must have had so much fun with that shit.
And he's got to have teeth in, right? Because he looks almost the same, but slightly different. I feel like they
Bigger
put
nose,
like fake teeth and maybe a little bit of a nose, like good hair and makeup on that. Because he does look different but the same. Yeah. Oh, so funny.
Yeah, and so he steals the act, and then he has Scarlett Johansson spy on him.
Yep.
Because he's just obsessed. He's like, I need you to find out the fucking trick. He's like, well, what about your wife? And he's like, I don't care about my wife. All I care about is a trick. That is, whoa. Yeah. And he even has a moment of like, oh shit, I can't believe I just said that. She's also like, oh my God, he's lost it. He's just completely obsessed with finding this fucking trick.
He's trying to do his own version. He has to spend the prestige under the stage, hidden. He's just feeling humiliated, I think, in that frame. Oh.
Yeah, and even at one point, he's like, why can't we like switch it so that I can get the applause? And he's like, we can't do that. The guy we can't have him talk.
Yeah. All he can do is go out there and bow.
Right.
That's it.
Borden and Scarlett Johansson. I forgot her character name.
Oh, you don't. Yeah, we just call her Scarjo.
Okay. They start plotting against the Great Danton at Angier.
Yes.
The double for Angier. They get into his head.
Yes. They unionize him, basically. They're like, he's lost without you.
He needs you.
He needs you. You get more money or use your power.
Yeah. Yeah, and they plot,
cool.
and eventually they fuck up his act. Angier drops. He usually would drop down into a cushion, and he breaks his fucking
because
leg.
they moved the cushion, and yeah, he's like limping along on the fucking.
And then he looks across and he sees Borden with a goatee, and he's just like,
Yep.
see ya. And then he goes up and he fucks with the act, and instead of Angier coming out the other end,
Borden pops up.
Yeah.
Angier should also called it the new transport image.
Right.
He'd obviously been gunning for him, so Borden hits it at home.
And also they were like performing across the street from each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Borden destroys his act, and then they tie up his twin, and he comes down. He's sort of like, if you want to see a real show come across the street, just completely ruins it for him.
Yeah, because there's no coming back from that. He has way more successfully ruined all of Angier's shows. Angier's has not really slowed down Borden much at this point.
Right. And then we figure out Borden has even won up to one more.
Yeah, the reveals start coming.
The reveal starts coming where Angier is reading the journal, and he realizes that he intentionally gave it to Scarlett Johansson to give to him.
The whole time the journal was a plant, basically. And Borden was manipulating Angier's with his own words.
Yeah, but the way he discovers that is kidnapping Fallon and then burying him. And then Borden comes up and he's like, oh, so you're getting your hands dirty, eh? He writes down Tesla, that's a cipher, and then he like digs him up.
Yeah.
And he fucking saves him. And we know that Fallon is his fucking twin. And then you have that dinner scene, right? Where one part of Borden's twin has fallen in love with Olivia. That's her name. Olivia, Scarlett Johansson's character.
Yeah.
The other is in love with Sarah.
The house divided.
House divided. He has this whole dinner and he's like drunk and he just is losing it. He's like, I almost lost something near and dear to me today. So if it's okay with you, I want to celebrate. He looks unhinged. And even she's like, who the fuck are you? And it starts creating like so much tension and like you said, a house divided. It's like causing serious fucking problems.
Well, and she doesn't know who she's going to get. She sees this dual personality.
Yeah.
It's got to be hard. You don't know who you're going to get. You don't know if you're going to get the nice one or the asshole. Like, you don't know if he's going to be in love with you or Magic that day. That's not a fun place to be. Yeah, poor women in this movie. But you know, while all the drama is happening at home for Borden, we're also flashing back into the Tesla world where he has built the machine.
Yes.
And Angier's goes over and they have been testing it on the top hats. But they've decided to test it on the cat.
Top hats, they're like, it's not working, right?
They're like, it's not working. And they try it on the cat, and it seems like nothing's working. And then he leaves.
Yeah, and he's pissed. He's like, this has been a waste of my fucking time.
And money, like shitload of money. He's his sole financier for Tesla at this point. But then you hear these like horrifying cat noises for way too long. Like a lot of sound there, guys. Could have dialed that back. So all of a sudden they realize the machine's working.
Yeah, it's essentially cloning. Yeah. Right? But they just couldn't figure out the location.
Right. Yeah. They thought it was going to transport you and move you, but it's making a copy of you in another location.
I love the line where it's like, when Tesla's like, don't forget your hat. And he's like, well, which one's mine? They're all your hats.
They're all yours.
I wanted to briefly go back to what Andrew would also drives his obsession and his obsession with Borden and all that stuff. He resents that Borden has like a wife and a kid. He's like, that's my life. I should have had that life.
Yeah, he shouldn't be allowed to have that because it was taken away from me. Like, just knock up ScarJo already. I don't know. Make her own life.
Yeah. What's happening in Borden's like home is like chaos. She doesn't know what's going on. It drives her to suicide. And she kills herself. And it's like, so, because she's just like driven insane. Like, she has no idea who she's talking to. It's maddening. The third act, it consists of Andrea's figuring out this whole cloning thing. So he starts a brand new show. Big show, comes back from Colorado Springs.
He transports up to the balcony. Like the whole, like it's not just like on the stage. It's like using the whole theater, like big show.
Big show, really cool show. Borden sees it. And he starts to get obsessed. And he's like, how the fuck is he doing this? He needs to know. And then he's having like an argument with Fallon. And he's just like, and then he's like, no, this is it. We have to stop. And it's crazy for him to come to terms with that. It's like, we have to stop. This is too much.
Even now, the obsessive, probably one of the most obsessive people in this group is like, okay, we should stop.
Yeah. It's like, we should stop.
Nobody listens.
So nobody listens. He goes under the stage to figure out what the hell's going on. Like from the beginning. We go back to the beginning.
This is like in The Illusionist. This is the moment where you come back to that opening sequence. You're right back where we started. And now you're finally going to understand some of these things you've been seeing.
We see him drowning, and then he drowns right in front of Borden's eyes. And then he gets accused of murder, and he goes to jail. Then now we're like fully in the present. Borden is like, I want to meet this lord Caldwell, whatever the fuck it is. Even Cutter wants to meet him.
Everyone starts to get curious.
Like, who is this guy?
He's so interested in this process.
He sees this little girl in prison, and then he sees fucking Angier in front of him, and he's like, what the fuck? Like, I saw you die.
Yeah.
You know? And even Cutter visited his body in the morgue.
Yes.
So it's like, how the fuck? What is it? Like, he's actually like a little terrified.
Yeah.
You're taking this way too fucking far, man.
It's way too personal.
It's way too personal. And also, I'm on fucking death row. Like, this is crazy.
And you're not dead.
Yeah, it's like, whoa. Like, he's actually like, this is fucking nuts. And then he starts telling the guards, that's the guy. That's the fucking guy, man.
I mean, you would do that. You would be like, this is the guy I killed. He's right fucking here.
He's right fucking there, man.
How could I kill him? He was right here. He's right here.
So we understand that Angier's performance is like limited engagement. Come to realize that what Angier's been doing is he clones himself and he kills the clone. He drowns the clone, which is fucking crazy.
Those reveals are, and because all the like guys downstairs working had been blind stagehands. Like no one else knew what was going on. One of the most intense scenes in the whole film for me is when Hugh Jackman is giving that monologue. I never knew if I was going to be the guy in the tank or I was going to be the Prestige.
Yeah.
And it is intense. Hugh Jackman is so incredible in that moment. You see the level of sacrifice.
And you realize now why it was limited. He had a limit.
Do it.
He couldn't. Yeah, he had a limit. Like, he can only do this so much because
I can only kill 50 people? Still fucked up, dude.
Yeah, and so it was, and then you realize that's how he was doing it. Then you see Borden get hanged, but then he also fucking reappears in front of Angier.
This is where the Fallon
reveal.
Yeah. It's more about the kid at this minute. Who's going to be the best father to this kid? So it's like Fallon stuck, like Borden, which is going to be the one that hangs and which is going to be the one that takes care of the kid. That's a reverse Sophie's Choice if there ever was one.
Yeah, and it's so like it's so fucked up. Angier is like destroying the machine. He's in the basement. Then he hears a noise and a rubber ball appears, picks it up, and then he's just shot in the fucking stomach. And he's just like, what the fuck? And then he goes down and then Borden appears.
Yeah.
And that's when it's revealed that, he's a twin.
Yeah.
It's a twin brother. They both decided to live as Borden, one person, commit to that performance. So they were living like as twins, as one life. And that's how he was able to pull off this trick. And so the whole thing with Tesla was just a misdirect.
And it was that simple answer. It was a double.
It was a double.
They were telling you all along it was a double and you didn't want to hear it.
But Angier is the villain here because it's like, not only just killed my twin, you fucked with my daughter. You couldn't accept
that I was the better magician.
Better magician, yeah.
Maybe not the better showman, but the better magician.
But also, the stuff with his wife was an accident. So and it just becomes this story of like obsession. The first time I saw it, I was a little let down by the ending because I was like, fuck. I was expecting, I guess, something else. But also, I knew that Fallon looked like him, but I'm like, why? Why is he doing this? And then when it does reveal the twin, I'm like, yeah, that's okay. I thought there was going to be something else.
And they're both really dark reveals because you get the twin reveal and you get the like dead clone reveal.
Right.
So it's kind of,
But also then I started thinking, did Borden ask Tesla to make a clone of him?
That was his way of trying to be a showman. The machine wasn't going to do anything.
No, I get it. But that was the first time I saw it, I was like, did Tesla make a clone? I was just so like, what the fuck? I didn't quite get it.
That would have been interesting. What if the real turn was that they only did it once, but that Fallon was Borden's Tesla clone?
I thought that would have been kind of cool.
That could have been cool.
I think that would have made a lot more sense.
That would have tied it more, that would have made the Tesla thing feel more relevant. Because as much as David Bowie is the best part of that movie, not totally relevant. Like you said, it's a total red herring.
Right.
He is sending him on a months, years long wild goose chase.
Yeah. Yeah. And, but also I started like thinking about like, how did the twins live this life? What were the rules?
That is a hell of a choice to make.
That's quite a commitment. It's obviously, they're both psychotic. They're both obsessive and, but it's like, what are the fucking rules here?
The idea that the only way to be so incredible at your craft that you have to sacrifice everything around you is that's hard for me to see.
Yeah.
I can't be that person. I need to be the kind of person that thinks I can achieve my wildest dreams without losing everything I hold dear. But these fuckers are like, the only way I can get everything I want is to go as hard as I can. I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in.
The psychological stuff, right? It's like you also both believe you're one person. Like, that's fucking nuts.
And I didn't think about this picking the film other than the fact that it was a twin film, but twins.
Twins. There's a lot of twins in this.
A lot of twin play. A lot of twin mentions.
Round 2, cast and crew for The Illusionist. Edward Norton is really handsome in this movie. My God.
He's very dreamy.
Jesus. I was like, damn, dude, this guy is doing something to me.
There was that period where Ed Norton was just doing all sorts of really cool things, like different stuff, like Death to Smoochie and 25th Hour. And
he looks good with that beard and hair. I'm like, damn.
He plays a good, broody, mysterious guy.
Yeah.
I love me some Ed Norton. Obviously, the standout in the film is Paul Giamatti.
Oh.
Without him being the inspector, this film, I think, feels a lot flatter.
Paul
really
Giamatti
flat.
is just so goddamn good. I mean, he has a great voice, great way of just a great performer.
He brings his ownness to everything he does and puts these little subtle touches. Love his timing. Love his little looks.
Jessica Biel was interesting. I thought Jessica Biel did a great job. I think
this is one of her like more interesting roles where she gets a little more to work with. Mm-hmm. She gets to be sad, not just like a happy fun girl. I thought she was pretty good.
Yeah, she was pretty good.
She's pretty good.
It's just in general, I had my reservations not because of her talent, just because when American actresses portray like English or
those
European
accents.
Yeah, those accents, right? I was just like, I don't know if she can do this. And then when I saw it, I was like, wow, she did a great job. Really, really good job. So
I think she stands up well too with the prince. Like some of her better scenes are when she's just kind of being tougher by not doing a lot. Just even her body, like the way she's holding herself to have to stand up to this kind of serial abuser and be strong and deceptive towards him. She's carrying that through the film, and you see her body do a lot of that acting too. I noticed a lot of that.
Yeah, she's hot. She's so beautiful.
She's beautiful.
She's so damn hot.
She's beautiful. And yes, and her evil prince is Rufus Sewell.
Oh, great.
And that's when I got into the history of it, because you look at the historical pictures, this guy has this like awful mustache like that. Just kind of looks like a prick. Like they did great hair and makeup on him because Rufus is a very handsome man.
Yeah.
And they really made him look schmarmy, and I think he really embodies this entitlement.
Oh, dude, he was fantastic. He's always been just such a great fucking actor.
Young Eisenheim was played by Aaron Taylor Johnson.
That's right.
Which at the time he was Aaron Johnson. He had not acquired his wife's name at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays a small role. I mean, you don't see the young people very often in that flashback, but you see him in that locket again at the end. It's pretty funny. He's so baby-faced. It was weird to see that far back in time for him, because now you just see him as this big leading man blockbuster guy. And so he's just like this skinny little teenager then. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. And then the young Duchess is Eleanor Tomlinson. She hasn't done as big roles as Aaron Taylor Johnson, but I still recognized her too.
She's definitely been around. Yeah. She was, and they were really good in those, flashback scenes. So when we're talking about cast and crew for The Illusionist, I looked up some fun facts wanted to share. And one of the most interesting ones I was like, oh, I gotta talk about this, is Jessica Biel was actually a last minute replacement right before filming. It was supposed to be Liv Tyler.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm sure that's because of the Hulk, her and Ed doing the Hulk together, like something around there. But I don't know why Liv Tyler wasn't able to do the film.
It could have been a scheduling thing.
So, yeah, some other offer came up or whatever. I love Liv Tyler.
Yeah,
she's excellent, especially in The Leftovers recently. Like, wow. I cannot imagine her in that role at all.
I can imagine her.
I don't know.
I think you're wrong.
It's okay. Let's fight about it. Last little tidbit for the Illusionist cast and crew. I want to talk about Ricky Jay. Ricky Jay was the magic consultant for the Illusionist and did all the personal training with Ed Norton. Ed Norton, they didn't rely on CGI. They really wanted to teach him sleight of hand. So he worked closely with Ricky Jay to learn sleight of hand practices.
And wait, Ricky Jay is an actual magician, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So Ricky Jay is an actor and magician and inventor. He and his company, like he has this amazing storied history in Hollywood. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2018. He was very beloved. His history is so interesting. He was a prolific magician, one of the best sleight of hand magicians of all time. And he not only trained Ed Norton on The Illusionist, but as we'll talk about later, he also trained the actors in The Prestige. So he was a part of both of these films. And he was a consultant on a lot of other movies. Ricky Jay acted in movies like Heist, Boogie Nights, The Secret Cabaret, Mystery Men, Tomorrow Never Dies, Heartbreakers, State and Maine, Magnolia, and he was in Deadwood season 1, which he also wrote an episode of, which I had no idea about.
Wow.
Ricky Jay is just a huge legend. He also used to hold the Guinness Book of World Records for being able to throw a card the longest, the farthest. He could throw a playing card 190 feet at 90 miles an hour.
Whoa.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Ricky Jay and his partner started Deceptive Practices, and they started doing cool props for movies. They helped invent the wheelchair that Lieutenant Dan uses in Forrest Gump to hide Gary Sinise's legs.
Wow.
They also helped on these 2 magic films in creating some of the illusions and the tricks. So just super
That's cool.
interesting.
Really, really cool.
Guy. Have you ever been to the Museum of Jurassic Technology?
I've never been, no.
Okay, it's in Culver City here in LA. I can't describe it. It's just a like place of oddities, and you kind of have to see it to understand what it is. But Ricky Jay is one of the people that helped design a lot of the stuff in there. So if that gives you a sense of the weirdness you'll go into, I highly recommend checking it out. It's worth a trip. It's a cool afternoon.
Round 2 of The Prestige, cast and crew. One of the reasons why I think I really enjoy this fucking movie is just I love Christian Bale. That guy is just so good, man.
The cast top to bottom in this is flawless.
Hugh Jackman's my favorite. Love
Hugh Jackman's incredible. Christian Bale's incredible. Michael Caine's incredible. All the women,
Everything.
Scarlett Johansson, Rebecca Hall, Piper Perabo, they're all good. And then to cap it off with David Bowie and Andy Serkis.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just amazing casting.
David Bowie is obviously very selective about things that he performs in. And I read that David Bowie initially rejected it. And he was just like, no, I'm not interested. And Nolan went out to meet with him and convinced him to do it. Just because Nolan was just like adamant. He wanted him to do it because there's this sort of like legendary status that Tesla has. And I think you can embody that. You know, and I think after talking to Nolan, he was convinced. And great fucking choice. I mean, he's just
so cool.
He just does such a good job.
Tesla was such a unique innovator. You can't let just anybody embody that. It's a really fun choice.
But it really elevates that character you portray. You know, it's a version of Tesla. And so it elevates it to a point where, God, I mean, Hugh Jackman must have been like freaking out, like performing with fucking David Bowie. That's just mind boggling. And David Bowie plays Tesla so calm and
so chill,
wise. And so it's like, I can't imagine that version of Tesla even getting like upset. He's just so weathered. He's just like, I've seen a lot of shit. So that conversation when he talks about obsession, it really elevates it. It's like, I believe this guy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I think Mr. Bowie, David Bowie often plays some version of himself or some kind of magical, mythical creature in Labyrinth. And he's over the top. To see him in this chill, subdued, still very intense character is such a different take from Bowie's usual stuff. I just love everything about it. And Andy Serkis is such a fun dynamic with him because they're in this very serious science environment. And Andy Serkis is just this fun fangirl hanging out who doesn't want his cat to get hurt. Like, just love that dynamic.
Round 3, magic.
So this week, since it's not the most action-heavy film, we're going to use round 3 to break down the magic and figure out which movie accomplished it better.
Prestige just has more variety. There's a lot more things to, look at.
The magic stays throughout the film a lot more. Whereas in The Illusionist, you get it in the midsection, in the beginning and the midsection. The end, it's more about revealing the murder mystery of it all, as opposed to the magic staying in. In The Prestige, the magic ramps up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, with The Illusionist, I think my favorite trick there was the sword. I like that trick a lot. It was pretty cool.
It's cool. In this trick, they're kind of they're in the prince's palace, and Eisenheim takes the sword and just holds it up and is explaining about the Legend of King
Oh,
Arthur.
yeah.
And then he just lets go of the sword and it just stays standing in thin air.
That's cool.
And all the dukes and admirals try and come and pull it out. Nobody can make a budge. And not even the prince can until Ed Norton does his voodoo.
Right. Before that, it was like that painting that appears. I was like, it's, Photoshop.
The orange tree was pretty cool.
Orange tree was really
good.
cool.
He takes an orange, a fresh orange, he cuts it open, he takes the seed out, he puts it in a
pot.
a pot of soil. Yeah. Thank you. And then he makes it grow. That's really, really cool. And that's obviously a huge part of the film because that reveal is that.
And they never show you the reveal, but you can see through the images how it's done. With like quick snippets of images.
Yeah, you kind of get how he makes the plant grow, quote unquote.
The Illusionist didn't really show you a lot of how these tricks are done, whereas the Prestige would do a little behind the scenes.
Yes.
This is how you do it.
I think that's where Michael Caine's character Cutter really shines in The Prestige, is you're seeing him in the behind the scenes. You're seeing how dirty your hands have to get and the mechanics of that stuff, them building the shop where they have all the birds. So I think that stuff is much more layered in The Prestige.
There were certain things in The Illusionist I wish they could have shown how he does certain things. Like the mirror thing that they did.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
The mirror trick was one of my favorite parts of The Illusionist. They bring up the Duchess and she's in a robe and she's looking at herself in a big mirror. And in the mirror, the figure gets cut down with a sword and disappears.
Yeah.
It's very cool trick. Yeah, that would have been a really fun one to actually learn the behind the scenes of and give a reveal. Because I feel like in The Illusionist, they're relying on the quote unquote magic of the illusions, mostly being about her disappearance.
Right.
Him squirreling her away and that part of it, which is fine, but that all leads to one reveal.
Yeah.
So in The Prestige, you're getting multiple tricks. You're getting evolution of both magicians. You're getting sideshows they're going to see and other magic acts. You're getting a lot more magic in The Prestige.
I did look up after Illusionist how that ghost thing was done, and I think it literally was smoke and mirrors.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, so it's literally like smoke and mirrors, but it did never show that, and both had a different way of going about it. Obviously in The Illusionist, he's like, fuck that, I'm not going to show you how it's all done. Prestige was like, I don't mind showing you what it's done. I still thought the tricks in The Prestige were pretty cool. I mean, I really did like the twin stuff, the whole fishbowl thing, how they did that. The water one with the beginning, it was okay.
Even just seeing the trap doors and them falling under stage, you're not getting any of that in The Illusionist. You're getting so much of the magic from the outside. You're more in Paul Giamatti's gaze.
Yeah.
So it's enamoring and it's fun, but it's distant. It's mysterious. Whereas in The Prestige, you are in the thick of it with them.
Yeah, I think I know I said that I like The Prestige probably better, but actually I think now that we're actually talking about it and going through it, I think The Illusionist just had more cool magic moments that it didn't reveal itself. So I think I probably enjoyed the magic more with The Illusionist.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'd give it to The Prestige.
Interesting. Okay.
For the magic of it all.
Okay. I mean, I did like that trick in The Prestige where he's in prison and he's bouncing the ball and then he locks the guard.
The guard.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah, because the guard's giving him shit too. He's like, oh, if you're such a good magician, why don't you bust out of here? And he's like, maybe I will. Maybe I'm just waiting. And the guard's like, whatever, dude. And he locks him up by the shackles. Fucking great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I laughed hard at that one. I think this is the right time to transition into the conclusion.
All right.
Let's pick a winner.
The Illusionist versus The Prestige. And the winner is?
On a count of 3.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. The Prestige. Yeah. All right. It's just a better movie, Even though I will say this, right? They're twin films, but they're not completely identical. So there are certain things that are similar, like the opening. Someone is arrested and put in prison.
Playing with the timeline.
Playing time jumps, playing with the timelines. Obviously, it has to do with magicians, magic tricks, things like that. But they have different motivations. The Illusionist is all, he's upset. He's in love. Prestige is about obsession, one-upping each other, rivalry. I think for that reason, The Prestige is a more interesting film to watch. It's just more interesting to see two people battle each other.
That rivalry really does fuel the film and give it so much momentum. And The Illusionist feels more like a romantic drama.
Yeah.
Whereas The Prestige has so much more intrigue and action and more magic, I think,
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
It's
So
like dark, brooding, mysterious. It's
Yeah.
just, they're different. I think this is the first episode where, Volcano Dante's Peak and Inside a Bug's Life really felt identical. Really in so
Yes.
many ways. They
Yes.
obviously had their differences, but this one's interesting because there was more differences than similarities.
I agree.
You
I
know?
agree. And yet the final reveal involved twins. So
Yeah.
we still win.
That's The Illusionist versus The Prestige. Thank you for listening in.
Let us know what you think and which is your favorite magic movie.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. We want to thank Monica Sandoval for the graphics, Ricky Lee Kroll for composing our music. She did a wonderful job. It's really fun music. Also, a special thanks to Eduardo Roman for letting us use his space for this special episode. And please tune in for our next episode, which is Real Genius versus Weird Science.
Really excited for this one. We got some good 80s vibes.
80s vibes, and we have a special guest for our next episode. Yeah, so please tune in for our next episode.
Thanks for listening, y'all. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you so much.